Okay, so we're going to begin by talking about prophecy. Okay, so the word prophecy, nivu'ah, comes from the word niv, which means a phrase. So it means a person's perceptions become so acute in terms of their ability to know God that they could grasp what he's conveying the way you hear me speak with that level of clarity. There is no more prophecy in today's world. So I want to give you a brief history of prophecy and to tell you why there is no prophecy contemporarily. Okay, so when Adam was created, he spoke to God. His awareness of God was so immediate and vivid that he spoke to God and heard him. This continued, but people have the capacity to create blockages to not hear God no matter how clearly he presents himself. Do you understand what I mean? Okay, so these blockages are inherent to human choice making. So for the early part of the world's history, all the way up till the destruction of the first temple, the first exile, and the return to Eretz Yisrael, there were prophets. But there were also people who I would call anti-prophets, meaning people whose level of blockage is so profound that they may as well have been animals, as there are today. Now, between these two very, very polar extremes, there's a lot of room. So in the positive sense, there's room for a state of being called Ruach HaKodesh, which still exists in the world today. The word Ruach means spirit. It literally means wind. So the same way no one ever sees the wind, you could see what the wind does. Someone will say, oh, I see it's windy, the trees are moving. What you see is a moving tree, you don't see the wind. Okay, no one sees the spirit, but we feel within us its presence. So there are different words for the soul. The primary words that we use for our purposes are ruach, nefesh, and neshama. The word nefesh means that which rests. So it's the aspect of the spiritual self that rests against the walls of the body. So, are any of you moved by music? Do you find music deeply moving? Yes, okay, so do I. So it's the nefesh self that's touched by music because you need your ears to let it in. So even though the experience of beautiful music is spiritual, you need a body to access it. Neshama is the opposite. It's the aspect of soul that most of us don't experience very readily, where there's something that you feel within you without there being an outside force that makes you aware of it. So the inherent yearning for goodness would be from the neshama. Between these places, there's ruach, which is the choosing self. So the most unique part of your personality is the ruach, the person you choose to be on the basis of your inner workings and outer realities. So Ruach HaKodesh means having a spirit that's holy. What do you think holy means? So when you say God's separate, God's holy, what does that mean? So separate is right, but it's separate from things that limit you. So here are some things that limit human beings. Our lives are very short, we're extremely subjective, we fall into the traps of lust, of envy, of wanting validation from the outside. You could see this, we're very limited. So God is objectively holy because he's not limited by anything. But different humans have different levels of holiness depending on the kind of lives they choose to lead. So Ruach HaKodesh is a pre-prophetic state. That's the precursor of prophecy. You have to be here before you can get there. So Ruach HaKodesh is when you unblock yourself. You get beyond your limitations, to the degree to which a person can. So there's a How to Do It book, which some of you may have seen. Did you ever see the book Mesilat Yesharim? That's how to do it. Like, see, you too could have Ruach HaKodesh. All you have to do, folks, all you have to do is become absolutely humble, completely honest, enthused for God. Got it? See, you too. Okay. So if you actually live like this, you unblock yourself. That makes sense to you? Okay. So that's not prophecy. That's analogous to as follows. Imagine there's someone on the other side of the door. I open the door. That's Mesilat Yesharim. You open the door. That doesn't mean the person's going to walk in. You understand this? Ultimately, whether a person experiences prophecy or not is up to God. But you could unblock yourself. Okay, so in earlier times, people did this with a great deal of alacrity and persistence, to the point that in the era of the first temple, no one even knows how many prophets there were. What we do know is we're talking about a 6-digit figure. People would aspire to unblock themselves. There were yeshivas for prophecy. Okay, but at the same time, there was also a great deal of idol worship, because the same force that said that a person would feel that said, I want to walk the whole path, I want to get there, that same force would say, seek spirituality however you could find it, and would sometimes lead them to idol worship. So I want to move over here for a moment and talk about idol worship, because this is important for you to understand the Parsha, because the hero, or anti-hero, more correctly, of the Parsha is a prophet who was not Jewish and was very sunken into a certain form of idol worship. So how a person could be there and also there is something that we have to get into. So here's how idol worship goes, okay? So I want you to listen carefully and tell me which step is the dooming one. Step 1, everyone wants connection to God. So I'm just going to illustrate this to you briefly, because in today's world, people are unconscious of it. If you think about the person who you like the best, yeah? Any of you from New York? The person who you dislike the least. Okay, sorry. Okay. Okay, so when you ask anybody, why do you like the person you like the best? You get surprisingly similar answers. I don't want to know anything about the person, nothing to hint at their identity. Just tell me what you like about them.
Kind. They're kind.
They're kind. What would you say?
Selfless.
Selfless.
Honest.
Honest.
Very
Sincere.
Giving.
Giving. Okay, you there? Okay, I've asked this question to many people in many different places, including non-Jews, and once even in Las Vegas. Nobody ever gives physical answers. It's never rich, tall, thin. Okay, clear? So what people love about other people are their souls or their bodies. It's their souls. The soul is an aspect of Hashem. So when you ask what you love the most, really what you're looking for is connection to Hashem. But we experience it through our relationship with other people. This is clear? Okay. Everybody wants this. In earlier times, when there was less distraction from the world was much simpler. People sought this with much greater vigor than they do today. So people want a connection to God. That's step 1. That's okay? Okay. Step 2. The way you make a connection with anyone is through understanding them. Is that true? Mm-hmm. So if you want to understand God, you could look at his creativity and his compassion and his continuum of giving. So when you look at the world, you could see that there are some things that seem to be there just to sort of wow you. They don't seem to have like a physical purpose. Like if you look at the number of colors that there are when you say the word red, is there only one color that's red? Hundreds of reds, light red, dark reds, purplish, pinkish, right? Okay. And then you'll think flower. Think, wow, God did this to wow us, to make us, could you see where that makes sense? Okay. So they said there are other things that seem to have function, like the earth itself has function. It's a place from which things grow. So they said, God, if he made things just to make us feel something of how much he loves us and gives to us, we probably should meditate on those things. Does that make sense to you still? Okay. Next thing, people would find whatever it is that they wanted to use as a meditation vehicle to think about the Creator. Make sense still?
That's the next step.
Next step. Next step, since you can't take Mount Everest with you wherever you go, or all of the stars in the heavens, they made symbols or pictures that were meant to remind them of whatever it is that they wanted to use to reach God. This still makes sense? In all societies, there are people who like money and like prestige. Is that true? There are. So there would be people who say things like, for only $28, boys and girls, that's right, $28. You could have a string from Rachel's tomb. This will give you, okay, are there people like this in today's world too? Yes? Why? Put it into a sentence. Why will people go for this? Because people will do anything for connection, and this doesn't require self-change. Got it? So this is the easy way. Okay, next step. Remember those folks who like money and prestige? Well, they're going to say, I know how I can give you a connection. You follow me, and I will teach you how to get that connection.
So this is the step where it goes wrong.
What? This is where you could see where things are going really wrong here?
Because it's like, yeah, they're starting to idolize a certain person.
Right. But I want to give you more information. Now, the next step, now this doesn't always require that the person be insincere. It's tricky. The person may convince themselves that they have a way of creating connection or not. It could go either way. The person will develop a small circle around himself. They'll spread the word. And before you know it, you have a personality cult that's meant to take you to God via a certain person. Got it? So this is the story of all idol worship. And as you could see, this story also relates to a very large degree to Christianity and Islam, even though Islam is certainly not idol worship. Okay, clear? Because they're clear about Muhammad only being a prophet of God and not God. The Christians are much less clear. Okay, yeah?
Why would anyone listen to one person of like creating this cult and worshiping things? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If it's majority of it is, I know the best thing and you don't have a say, so you follow what I say.
Because it's even more tangible to worship a person. You can't see God, so if a person's saying to you, like, I have the answers, it's so much easier to be like, okay, I got my faith in you because I can see you and touch you and feel you.
But like, there are so many things that a lot of people can come up with themselves also, like with intelligent questions or whatever.
So I'm just going to I'm going to repeat to you a couple of fragments of passages from the New Testament, which will answer your question. Jesus, his best sermon, at least in my opinion, from a literary sense, his best sermon was the Sermon on the Mount. Did any of you read it? It's nice literarily, isn't it? Okay, so it begins, suffer ye little children, come unto me. So he addresses himself first to the children, then to the humble, then to the thieves, then to the prostitutes. Now when you read it, you've got it. You've got it in one word, the vulnerables. Okay? And this is why, now whether he actually said the words that are attributed to him or not, I don't know. I could make a case either way. Let's say he said those words. He was going for the vulnerable. Let's say he didn't say those words. Whoever was cashing in on his life was going for the vulnerable. Okay, clear? And the same would hold true in all of the idolatrous cults. When you look at Christianity specifically, the reason why it's so much more transparent there than it would be, let's say, in Islam, which again, Islam isn't idolatrous, so it's in a different category. But certainly in Buddhism, certainly in Hinduism, it's very extreme. You'll have a lot of distrust of intellectual endeavor and inquiry. There'll be anti-intellectual inquiry. This is especially true in Hinduism and in Buddhism, but it's also to some degree true even in Islam and certainly in Christianity, where when they translated the Bible to languages that were understood by people, this was viewed with a great deal of criticism in Rome, because it's supposed to be a religion of faith and not of knowledge. They view faith and knowledge as being antithetical. Okay, clear? Which isn't to say that all Christians are stupid. I want to make that clear. You have intelligent Christians like Chesterton who like the message of Christianity but don't really deal that much with, and how did it get here? How did it get there? Okay, clear? Okay, so moving on. Okay, so that's how idolatry works. Okay? So now you have prophecy, which is seeking God through changing yourself. And you have idolatry, which is the illusion of finding God not through changing yourself, but through attachment to something else. So these are completely antithetical things. So in the era when there was prophecy, there was, however, also a great deal of idolatry, because what fueled both was the desire for connection, which they felt then with much greater intensity than we feel now. Okay, this is clear? Okay, so this is why in the same era where there were thousands upon thousands of prophets, you have the prophets railing against idol worship. Okay? Then the Jews went out to exile. Then they came back. Wasn't that fast? Okay, so the religious leader who was involved in their return was called Ezra, who some of you heard of. What?
The scribe, right?
The scribe, Ezra the scribe, for whom the academy is named. Okay, clear? Okay, so he saw, when he looked at the spiritual state of the Jews who returned, that they're coming from such a pure place and wanting to return, but they could end up falling in these two separate directions again. Why? Because the need for connection is very great, and this way is a lot easier than that way. So he prayed to God that Hashem, are you ready? De-intensify our spiritual longing. So he asked for Hashem, so to speak, to move the sound down from 10 to, let's say, 7. So there was a trade-off. On one hand, from that point onwards, Jews hardly ever worship idols. And there also is no more prophecy. Okay, clear? So prophecy isn't Ruach HaKodesh. I want to make that clear. Ruach HaKodesh is opening the door. Prophecy is when someone comes in. There are people even in today's world who have Ruach HaKodesh. Nobody has prophecy. Okay. So now going to our Parsha. So in our Parsha, you're going to be introduced to a prophet who was a non-Jew, Bilam. And not only was he not Jewish, but he wasn't a particularly good person. Not only wasn't he a particularly good person, he was driven by extreme greed. His lust was so great that he even had a sexual relationship to his animals, to his donkey. He was very, very far, but he became a prophet. So the question is, how'd that happen? And why? So there's both how and why. Okay, so now I want to introduce you to an idea that you've probably heard about in other classes more than once, which is that the forces of good and evil have to be of parallel strength in order for free choice to flourish. So if there's prophecy, then there has to be a way of getting what prophecy gives you, or at least the feeling of getting what prophecy gives you, coming from a bad place. Okay. So now let's understand Bilam's process. How would he become spiritually conscious if he was living a bad life and not tearing down any barriers? So, have any of you been involved in meditation in any sort of a serious way? So,
No.
Okay, so if you were, here's how it goes. So there are different levels of meditation. Okay, the lightest one I thought that some of you might have been familiar with would have been yoga. Okay, so yoga is a series of body stretches, but the word yoga is related to the English word yoke, which is to put your body under the yoke or subservience of your soul. That your body is doing what your soul wants. So the soul is the self, and the body is the follower. That's the goal. So in order for this to happen, you have to move on in a successful way. You move on to different levels. There's Hatha yoga, Kundalini yoga, in which you involve your breathing. And ultimately, the goal is for your mind to submit as well. So I want to illustrate this to you and then tell you why it works and to the degree to which it works. Okay, picture yourself on a boat. You're there? Okay. Do any of you like boating? So you're on a boat. The boat is white. You're in the Atlantic. It's like not too hot, but it's not cold. And there's like a lot of spray in your face. You could see yourself there. You're on the boat. What are you looking at and what are you thinking?
Looking at the ocean and thinking of how vast it is.
Okay, you could see that? How much fun you're having, the good feel of the water on your face, yeah? If you're into meditation, you would be able to detach enough to see yourself looking at the ocean on the boat. You're in the picture and looking from the picture. So the real masters of meditation have themselves, including their ego, totally under the submission of their souls. Okay, clear? Okay, here's the hard part. This was all easy. Here's the only hard part of today's shir. And then we'll make it relevant. Okay, so we just said before, soul is an aspect of God. Do non-Jews have souls?
Yes.
Yes. What's the proof?
It was that they value human life.
Animals value their lives. They try to resist danger.
They value other people's lives.
So if they're members of the same family, like you've seen, a wolf will protect its pack. God has moral expectations from non-Jews. Okay, clear? So this is a proof that they have souls. Okay, clear? Okay, so if a person could contact their soul through meditation, they're to some degree connected to God. That makes sense to you? Okay. Now, is that the same as prophecy really? No. It's not the same, but it's similar. There is connection. So I want to tell you the difference. Now we went over the hurdle, okay. Prophecy begins with Ruach HaKodesh. Ruach HaKodesh is opening the door. Meditation is removing the door. You understand this? It's a whole different thing. There's no self-work. It's removing the door. Yeah?
So is meditation kosher?
Could be. Okay, it depends on what you're in. It depends a lot on what your intention is, where you're coming from. Maybe, maybe not. It'll depend on many factors. Yoga, certainly. If it just stretches, it's certainly okay.
If there's no self-work, is that gonna work, basically?
So is it going to work? To some degree, yes. Now remember, the same way I told you that Ruach HaKodesh doesn't guarantee prophecy, profound meditation doesn't guarantee prophecy either. But it does remove the door. It works. Okay, clear? It works for that. Doesn't guarantee prophecy. What it does guarantee, if you're not careful, is a huge ego trip. Okay, clear? So when you talk to people who've been involved in Eastern cults and left, almost always there's always the same storyline. And then I discovered that the guru was an egomaniac. Okay, clear? Okay, now, what do I mean by egomaniac? Now, they didn't necessarily have prestigious offices and whatever, money, but they were very assured of their own perfection. Okay, clear? And for some people, for honest people, that's a strong turn-off. Okay, clear? Okay, so moving away from that, let's talk about Bilam. So Bilam was a master of this form of meditation. Okay, normally that would not lead to prophecy. But God made an exception for him. And the reason why God made an exception for him was as follows. Remember a moment ago we said the forces always have to be equal? Yes? So the non-Jewish world could have a reasonably justified complaint. Yeah, you people are doing pretty well. Yeah, it's accurate, like all the moral teachings that keep any civilization going in the end, all are there in the Torah. Is that true or not? Absolutely true. But you had a leader like Moshe. Maybe if we had a leader, maybe if somebody who led us had a real connection to God, we would have gotten somewhere. I mean, what do you expect from us? You understand that complaint? It's in today's world, but even in ancient times, when you look at it, who did they have? So they had a complaint. So God, therefore, gave them a prophet who was as great as Moshe. Do you realize the implication of what I'm saying? Meaning his level of understanding who you mean when you say the word God was as great as Moshe's. Huge thing. And he was totally corrupt, and they used his insights for totally corrupt purposes. Okay, clear? So I'm not going to tell you what was going on in the Parsha because that's not my job. You'll hear that later today. but I want you to understand who Bilam was. So now you could very reasonably ask, what does this have to do with me in my life? I'm not Bilam, I'm not Moshe. What does this have to do with me? So I want to point something out to you. Before you give your heart to anyone, you have to know where they're coming from. It's not enough that someone's a star. You have to know where they're coming from and what they're going towards. That makes sense to you? Okay, so that means you have to watch your own ideological inclinations. You have to ask, before you get on the bus, where this bus started at and where is it headed towards? So this is going to apply to you in many questions that you'll ask in your own lives. What are some questions that will apply to?
Is this guy the right guy for me?
Is this guy the right guy? Is this school the right school for my kids? Is this where I want to put myself? Is this the one whose influence I want to be on? Or is this the one whose words I trust? Okay, clear? Okay, so this is especially relevant in today's world, where morality has become completely relative. Could you see where this is so? Okay. So let's leave Bilam. So remember I said the next thing we were going to talk about is dreams. What's the connection between this and dreams? So what happens when you sleep is that your conscious self is no longer there. Your subconscious is alive and well. The nefesh is there. The neshama goes to Hashem. So when the neshama goes to Hashem at night, what happens there in heaven? It says Hashem comforts you. Did you know this? Did you ever hear this? Yeah, so you tell Hashem, this is what I've done in the course of the day, and this is where I've been, and this is what happened. Hashem comforts the soul. This is why we get up in the morning with greater optimism and greater inner strength. But you're left with your subconscious self. So, dreams. So dreams aren't limited by your rational self. The rational self, as we learned in previous classes, has limitations. To come to an idea, you have to observe something, understand it, and then you draw conclusions. It all hinges on observation, which is very limited. At night, the rational soul went bye-bye. Okay, so now you have your dreams. Dreams come from different sources. Some of them are physical. Here's the example of a physical source dream. You ate 3 pieces of pizza. You were in a particularly piggy mood. 3, and it was like they were hot, and there was like olives and mushrooms, and you had 3. Then you went to sleep. Then you had a dream. The troops are coming. They're choking me. Okay. This is called what? Indigestion. Okay, clear? Okay, so do we have dreams that come from physical sources? We do. Okay. There are other dreams that are coming from your subconscious, meaning Hashem is letting you skip over this barrier called mind and get right into other stuff. So for most of it says most dreams are nonsense. But every so often Hashem will let somebody see what they couldn't see because of their blockages. Hashem will let them see it through a dream. Is this real prophecy? No. Is it something? Yes. Is it rare? Very. Okay, so what are you supposed to do with your dreams? So the first thing is to realize that, do any of you dream frequently? Okay, so if you dream a lot, that means that you're getting these messages. Now these messages aren't prophetic. Remember, you haven't worked through anything and you haven't heard a voice. But they tell you something about what's going on in you. So the main message of a dream is, this is me. This is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm feeling. So at the end of Masechet Berachot, there's a little dream book where it says, if you dream this, this is its message. If you dream that, that's its message. It's very interesting. Did any of you ever see yourself die in a dream? Almost.
You can't die in a dream like that.
No, you can, but the psychologists say that you can't. But you can. People have. None of you have. So if you see yourself die in a dream, it's a sign of being a great tzaddik. Why? Because it means you could conceive of your body being finite and having a self that goes beyond. Okay, that's why the psychologists will say that you can't, because the people they know for sure can't. Okay, so when you have a dream, your main question is, what is it telling me? Okay, clear? So in general, therefore, you shouldn't share your dreams with other people, because how are they supposed to know what your subconscious is telling you? However, if you have a dream that's persistent and grabs you and is negative, then you should realize that God is telling you something that is frightening, that is negative. So you'll notice in your Siddur, there's a special prayer to be said if you have bad dreams. Because some English translators have this addiction to using words that nobody understands, like phylacteries, and those. How's about the word amelioration? Have you ever heard anybody use the word amelioration?
No. Neither has anybody else.
But if you look at your Art Scroll Siddur, you'll see that there's a place where you could go for amelioration of dreams. So that means praying against the force of bad dreams. But they don't want to say that. They want to say amelioration, because of course you may not know what praying against the force means. So what do? If you have a persistent bad dream, you get 3 people together. You tell them, as you'll see, it's written in the Siddur, I've had a bad dream, and they bless you, they wish you that it be good. Another thing that you could do is to go to Birkat Kohanim, which in Israel is every day. Do you know what Birkat Kohanim is? You know what a Kohen is, right? So there's a special blessing in the Torah that it says, God says to Aaron, this is how you should bless the people. You bless them with these words, and then I'll bless them. So it'll be for you and your descendants. So a blessing from a Kohen using this formula is the most powerful possible blessing. Okay, this is much more than if you go to like a big tzaddik for a blessing. Because this is from God. God says, if you say this, I'll bless them. It's the highest blessing there is. Okay, so if you have a bad dream, or Birkat Kohanim, which is part of the prayer service, in Israel it's every day. In Chutz La'aretz, there's only Birkat Kohanim for Sephardim on Shabbat, and for Ashkenazim only on the holidays. Okay, clear? So have your bad dreams here, because it's so easy to, okay, whatever. So, the reason I'm telling you about dreams in this context is that Bilam, the evil prophet, had his prophecy only at night through dreams, while Moshe could experience God directly when awake. Why do you think that was the case? Now that you know more about prophecy. Okay, so I'll bring you back to your own life. Has this ever happened to you? You go to the Kotel, you really want to feel connected. But once you get there, all you find yourself thinking of, it's so hot. Oh, I can't bear it. It's so hot. It's so crowded. Like, why are there so many people here today? I can't stand this woman. Like, why does she ask me for tzedakah? Like, I'm in the middle of praying. What does she, like, you could picture yourself going there? Okay, so it means your body is talking so loud that it's clouding out what your soul is saying. So for someone like Bilam, who didn't work through anything, right, his emotions and his body are a block. So he could only experience prophecy when asleep. Now you take this to Moshe. So, okay, so picture Moshe eating a pizza. Remember the pizza that you ate before you fell asleep? Okay. So Moshe's eating a pizza. What's he thinking? He's saying, this is a manifestation of God's goodness and caring, right? He would see Hashem, the sparks of holiness that give light to every olive. Got this? So he could experience prophecy while fully awake. But no, a non-Jewish prophet, and certainly an evil prophet like Bilam, could not. Okay. So in our Parsha, what we're going to encounter is that Bilam, for reasons that you still have to find out today, okay, is hired to curse the Jews. Okay, and he won't be able to. So we have to still get into is how blessings and curses operate. So I'm just going to leave you with the question. Suppose you sneeze, and I say what? Bless you. Why should God bless you? All you did was sneeze. So, I don't know about your soul came out. You sneezed, okay? And I said bless you. What does God care about what I say? Okay, clear? Now conversely, let's say I wasn't a nice person. I'm a nice person. Not great, but nice, okay. And we're downstairs in the lunchroom, as we'll be any minute, okay? Like, I should be ending the class already. Okay, and gosh, you spill soup on me. They don't serve soup anymore. You spill, what do they serve that's hot? hot vegetables, okay? You spill hot vegetables on me, and I say, okay, now, all you did was spill vegetables. Should you go to hell? No. And why would God listen to anything I have to say? Who am I to decide whether you go to heaven or hell, right? So what we're going to do tomorrow is to understand blessings and curses and what that has to do with prophecy. And we're moving right along, okay? You're welcome.